Hello, and wherever you are out there, I hope you are having a good start to your 2025. Me, though, thank you for asking. I'm doing all right, but you know who isn't doing so hot? It's the box office. So I know I am not the only one ready for summer to begin.
Gaming cookie guy.
Entertainment.
That's right. The summer movie season is already upon us, and it is officially kicking off on May 2nd with the release of Marvel's Thunderbolts Asterisk. And that means it is time to talk about some of the biggest movies coming out, and again, trying to predict the top 10. But before I get into this year's predictions, let's take a moment to reflect on how I did last year and maybe try and draw some lessons going into this year. So to recap, the top 10 movies domestically of summer 2024 were Inside Out 2 at $652 million, Deadpool and Wolverine, $636 million, Despicable Me 4, $361 million, Twisters, $268 million, Bad Boys Ride or Die, $194 million, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, $171 million, It Ends With Us, $149 million, A Quiet Place Day 1, $139 million, If, $111 million, and The Fall Guy at $93 million. And so I correctly identified 7 of the final top 10 movies, but I only had one of those landing in the exact right position with Deadpool and Wolverine at number 2. And I was clearly too high on movies like Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. I have it finishing at number 3 while it finished at number 6. And I was definitely too high on The Fall Guy. I had it at number 5 while it finished at number 10. And I was clearly too low on Twisters. I had it at number 9 and it finished all the way up at number 4. And of course, the 3 movies I didn't have on my list at all, the ones I did not see coming, were Bad Boys Ride or Die, It Ends With Us, and If. Instead, I went with Furiosa and Garfield. Both movies I thought were just like slam dunk lock picks at the beginning of the summer. And also, I took a long shot on Borderlands. And with that pick in particular, I'd like to remind you, I'm doing this in April, and I did it in April last year, so I don't even know if a trailer for Borderlands was out yet. Like, I know it wasn't a good movie, but I didn't know that yet. It had a late summer release. And so ultimately, I think I did fine last year, but I believe I can do better for my predictions in 2025. So here it is. Let's get right into it. And first, I'd like to talk about just a couple movies that just missed the cut. These are the ones that they could easily haunt me once we're looking back at this summer. Releasing on June 27th and starring Brad Pitt, F1 is not going to make my top 10 predictions. Now, it has a lot of things going for it. It's a sports movie. It has a bankable star in Brad Pitt. It's directed by Top Gun Maverick director Joseph Kosinski. And if you don't remember, that movie would go on to be the highest grossing movie of 2022 domestically. But I don't know. There's something about this movie that just makes me feel like it will get lost in the shuffle of the summer. Like, not necessarily that it's going to flop. I just don't think it's going to break big at the box office, especially with what I assume is going to be an older skewing crowd. But we'll see. Like, it's in my honorable mentions for a reason, because I could just be totally missing the big picture and the broad appeal here. And the one other movie that just missed my top 10, like out of 10, this would be number 11. This is Disney Pixar's Elio. And I could be totally missing the boat on this one, because historically animated movies do pretty well in this part of the year, especially from Pixar. Like, look no further than last year. Inside Out 2 became the highest grossing animated movie of all time before being displaced by Neja 2 this year. But if you go back just a little bit further, you go back to 2023, Elemental just barely scratched its way to number 10. And then Lightyear in 2022, an even bigger property, also kind of just barely made the top 10. And I feel like Elio as an original IP is going to perform more similarly to Elemental and Lightyear than to Inside Out 2. And so I can see a world where this doesn't really land with a big splash, and Disney kind of just shuffles it onto Disney Plus sooner rather than giving it an extended theatrical window. But now let's actually get into my top 10 predictions for the summer. Starting at number 10, I have Mithrigan 2.0, colloquially known as Megan 2. This is releasing on June 27th, and I went back and forth with this movie and Elio for that last spot in the top 10, but I ultimately decided to go with the one that I thought was the bigger wild card, the one that I thought had the higher ceiling, even though I think Elio as an animated movie has a higher floor. The first Megan movie, it was a surprise hit. It earned $95 million, which would have been good enough for top 10 in the summer box office last year. Of course, this being a sequel to a surprise hit and also getting a summer release rather than a January release, it seems likely to outperform the original. Again, this is a wild card pick. It's a horror movie. They don't necessarily have a great track record of finishing with big box office numbers, but I feel like there's always one that just kind of pops off, and so I'm putting my money behind Megan 2. At number 9, I am predicting Karate Kid Legends, releasing on May 30th. And I could see this movie being like this year's version of what Twisters was last year. It's a legacy sequel that's maybe going to do better than I'm expecting. And just like Twisters last year, I put it at number 9 because I wasn't sure what the audience support for it was going to be. Now, the last Karate Kid movie we had released was 15 years ago, back in 2010, if you can believe that. And it did pretty well. It grossed $176 million domestically. And with Cobra Kai keeping the franchise alive spiritually over time, I can see people turning out for this movie. So at this point, it kind of just depends on, hey, is the movie actually any good? Does it generate that buzz? Does seeing Jackie Chan and Ralph Macchio come together in the same movie, does that get people into the theaters? That remains to be seen, and that is why it is at number 9. At number 8, I'm putting what I feel like is maybe a riskier choice. It is The Bad Guys 2, and this is releasing on August 1st. And spoiler alert for the rest of my list, this is the only animated movie on it, which seems crazy to me. But given that Elio and Bad Guys 2 are kind of the only game in town, like these are kind of the only animated movies we have releasing, despite how lucrative those movies tend to be in the summer. So even though I don't know if this is the strongest pick, I felt like I had to bet on one of those animated movies to break through into the top 10. Now, back in 2022, the first Bad Guys movie made about $97 million, which was good enough for 13th in that summer's box office, but it reviewed pretty well. So I would expect there being more interest in this one, especially with the run of success that DreamWorks Animation has had lately. And I assume DreamWorks expects that success too, or they would not have greenlit a sequel. Now, August 1st is kind of a weirdly late release date for an animated movie to have. But then again, by the time we get to August, the runway is pretty clear for Bad Guys 2 to just rack up money all throughout the month. So if it can just work its way, if it can chip away at the lead that the other movies are going to have on it by the time we get to the end of August, I can see it making a push for that 10th spot, for that low top 10 spot. That's why I have it at number 8. At number 7, I have Mission Impossible Final Reckoning, set to release on May 23rd. Now, I would love to be wrong about this movie because this is a franchise that I really love. But historically, the Mission Impossible movies just don't make the absolute most money. During the Ghost Protocol to Fallout era, they were making about on average $210 million domestic. And then in 2023, we had the really strange underperformance of Dead Reckoning, only making about $172 million, which still baffles me. But I do think some of that movie was lost because it was a part 1. And the idea of a part 1 movie can kind of turn some people off of going to see it day one. They think, well, I can wait and then maybe do a double feature with the new movie. And so I think that will be in Final Reckoning's favor. Having said that, despite this being the big final action movie in this franchise, supposedly, it does seem like there is a cap on enthusiasm for Mission Impossible movies. But again, as somebody who in 2023 thought that Dead Reckoning was going to be the highest grossing movie of the summer, I'm so willing to be wrong about this franchise because I've done it before. I'm willing to be wrong again. At number 6, I'm putting what's probably another risky pick, but in the opposite direction. I am putting Jurassic World Rebirth, releasing on July 2nd. And this movie could easily finish as one of the top 4, top 3 movies of the summers, because Jurassic World movies just do really, really well. Like, not a single one of them has made under $375 million domestically, and not a single one has gotten under $1 billion worldwide. But despite that, if you look at all 3 movies, they are on a downward trend. Each movie has made less than its predecessor. And this is purely anecdotal, but I just don't know anybody who's that excited for another movie in the Jurassic World franchise. Let it, be it a sequel, be it a requel, be it a rebirth. I just don't know anyone who is lining up to see this movie day one. So unless it's really, really good, I can just see this one hitting a wall that I don't quite see with the other movies above it. At number 5, it is the movie that kicks off the summer movie season in their usual spot on May 2nd. It is Marvel's Thunderbolts. Now, Marvel did release a movie earlier this year, Captain America: Brave New World, and admittedly, it did not do that great. But I think Thunderbolts will be a bounce back movie for Marvel to start off the summer. It's a team up movie, which usually do really well at the box office, and it just looks from the eye test like it's going to be pretty good. And I think at this point, like, that's the bar. That's all the fans want. Like, if Marvel's just able to get out of their own way and make like a pretty good movie, I think the fans will show up for this. Regardless, I think this will be a way more successful Black Widow movie than the actual Black Widow movie was. At number 4, despite me wanting to put a certain other movie here for reasons, I am going with Lilo and Stitch, releasing on May 23rd alongside Mission Impossible. That's, for whatever reason, that's like the most high profile double release date of the summer. So like maybe it's this year's Barbenheimer, like Lilo Impossible. I don't know. Now, despite people being pretty sick of the Disney live action remake trend in general, I do think this is one property that is kind of insulated from that, and actually on paper makes a lot of sense for a live action remake, unlike certain other movies that may or may not have released earlier this year that I don't want to think about anymore. This summer's box office is also in desperate need of a younger skewing movie for families that want to take their kids out to the movies. And I think this is the one that will properly fill that niche. And if it does well enough, I can actually see myself being too low on this movie. But at number 3 is the movie that I wanted to put at number 4 for reasons that are about to be obvious, because it is Fantastic Four: First Steps, releasing on July 25th. I am ready to just love this movie. The people are ready to love this movie. Please, Marvel, just give us a reason to love this movie, and I promise we will show up for it. This is the last Marvel movie scheduled to be released before Avengers Doomsday, so they have to make sure that this one hits. And as far as I can tell, it is poised to do just that. Add in this being a late July release. They were patient with putting this one out. It should have a pretty clear runway all throughout August, similar to what I said with The Bad Guys 2. You put all that together, and I think this is an easy top 5 movie. Of course, I have it landing at my number 3. Really, the only question remaining, is it actually going to be a good movie? At number 2 is my biggest, bet, go out on a limb to overperform it. At least I think I'm betting on it to overperform. I actually didn't look at any estimates, any projections in making this video. I wanted it to just truly be my opinions, my research that I've done into these movies, and really just educated guesses. With all that said, at number 2, I am putting the DreamWorks live action remake of How to Train Your Dragon. Like I said with Lilo and Stitch, this summer kind of has a void of family movies. And I think this is the one. This is the family movie that is going to get everyone's money, going to get everyone into theaters in summer 2025. Man, I cannot wait for that take to just be ice cold. Because yes, we have seen so many live action remakes over the years from Disney, but it's finally DreamWorks' turn. Like, can they capture that early magic that Disney had with Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin and Lion King, those being incredibly successful movies? But again, I could be way overestimating this one, because not even the animated movies, none of them cracked like 220 million domestic. But DreamWorks seems to have a lot of faith in this property. They're putting it in all their theme parks. They're doing a heavy marketing push for this. They've already announced the date for How to Train Your Dragon 2. So if they're going to put their money behind this, why can't I? I think I'm going to do the same. And finally, we have reached the number one slot in my predictions. And if you are familiar with the slate of movies coming out this summer, you probably already know what it is. Yes, it is releasing on July 11th. It is James Gunn's and DC Universe's Superman. This movie's at my number one this year, not even necessarily because I want it to be. It's at my number one this year because it has to be. Warner Brothers needs this to be an absolute ironclad, bona fide hit after the complete mess that was the DCEU. Like, if they have not done everything possible to make this movie as great as it can be, they might as well cancel everything they have coming up, because this is it. They just be making these same mistakes all over again. Like I was saying earlier with Fantastic Four, and outside of maybe a few bad actors, pun not intended, I think people just want to go out and love a Superman movie. And speaking for me personally, I want to look up to the sky and see that hope. I want to believe that a man can fly. And if James Gunn's Superman can make that happen, I think it finishes as the highest grossing movie of summer 2025. And that's my list. So to recap, here are my predictions for the top 10 movies of summer 2025 from 10 to 1. At number 10, Megan 2.0. At number 9, Karate Kid Legends. At number 8, The Bad Guys 2. At number 7, Mission Impossible Final Reckoning. At number 6, Jurassic World Rebirth. At number 5, Thunderbolts. At number 4, Lilo and Stitch. At number 3, Fantastic Four First Steps. At number 2, How to Train Your Dragon. And at number 1, Superman. And now all that's left to do is to get out there and have a good time at the theater and watch some movies. Let me know in the comments, what movie are you most looking forward to watching this year? Let me know if you have your own predictions for the summer. We'll see if enough people get in the comments and leave their predictions. Maybe I'll do a recap movie at the end of the summer and compare how we all did. Either way, I hope you have a great summer. I will see you out at the theater, and I will see you in the next video.